I'm going to skip ahead to around page 36 at the top, starting at bottom page 35. See, this was after he and Amber had divorced, right? You with me on that?
They had separated on June 7th of 2012 legally.
Okay.
And although she admitted to adultery, they decided to divorce after a year of separation.
Okay.
Because she had found out that he was having an affair with a live-in babysitter.
Okay. And was there a period of time where she missed some visits?
Yes.
And what was his response to her missed visits?
He described that the place where Amber was living with her young boyfriend and his parents, that no one in the house was working, that he didn't know exactly how they supported themselves, and he thought that they might try to take advantage of Amber. She didn't have a job. She had no source of income. She didn't drive. And he was concerned that they would prostitute her.
And so what did he do?
He looked at Backpage.
He started looking for her on...
Yeah, to see if that's what was going on as an explanation for why she wouldn't show up for visitation.
So he was searching for her on the internet?
Yes.
On sites where people normally post for prostitutes?
Yes.
The second paragraph down, you talked about where DSS was called because of a bruise on the tongue. Is that right?
Yes.
And I know the jury's already heard it, and they've seen the picture. You said that there was a bruise on his neck. Have you seen the picture of the bruise?
I believe I did.
And is it actually on his chin?
I'd have to see it again. I'm sorry, I've reviewed hundreds of thousands of documents, and I just...
The jury has the picture. You looked at information from the collateral sources, particularly you talked to Mr. Jones Sr., Tim Jones Sr.
I did.
And you talked to him about Tim's head injury.
Yes.
And you asked him about whether or not there was a change in his personality.
Right.
What did he tell you?
He did not notice a big change in his personality, but at the same time, Tim was entering late adolescence and doing teenage rebellious type things.
Well, I mean, as somebody who's been studious and going from a straight-A student to I don't care attitude, would that be considered a change in personality?
Not necessarily, especially if he's using drugs and wants to party because he's going to go into the military. He doesn't need to work, keep up the grades to go to college.
You also talked to his grandmother, Roberta Thornsby.
Yes.
And how did she tell you he looked or appeared? She had seen him in Atlanta a couple weeks prior to...
She thought she saw him in Atlanta the weekend before this happened.
Was that correct?
And I just said, based on my records and looking at the credit cards, when the Embassy Suite text messages about this is where we're going to stay, it was earlier in August. It was the first weekend in August.
Before the kids started.
Right. And she was very concerned. He'd lost weight, lost a lot of weight. He was drinking excessively. You get, I think, coupons or something to go to the bar. When you check into Embassy Suites, he asked for her coupons and her husband's coupon. That he was drinking heavily and looked haggard.
Did she mention to you that he had come in and thought that Elaine had been behind the couch crying?
Yes, she did.
And that makes it into your report?
I don't know if that made it into my report or not. I don't think so.
Well, she told you that was false, right?
He actually told me it was Gabriel.
That he thought was behind the counter. And there was no child behind the counter, right?
Apparently not, no.
I mean, from what Mrs. Thornsberry told you.
Not that she was aware. She was asleep.
And I think we've sort of talked about this, and I'm skipping forward to the results of, I think it's under the results of the neuropsychological evaluation. And we've talked about that his voices or auditory disturbance may best be explained as negative self-talk. That's your conclusion, right?
No, that was Dr. Cruz's conclusion.
Okay. Do you agree with that?
I think that what he reports is voices or anxious thoughts that he has. I mean, just like anybody would have in certain situations.
Well, he says that they're not his thoughts, right? When he talks
They're thoughts that he doesn't want, they're intrusive and that he doesn't want to think about this all the time, but he can't stop.
and they resolved through medication, is that right? That's what he reported.
Right, but I would expect them to because of the SSRI that he's taking, the antidepressant.
Okay. The voice in your head, your conscious, your negative self-talk, you can't resolve that through medication, right? That doesn't go away.
If it's due to anxiety, yes, it can go away with treatment with an antidepressant medication.
Is this, let's see, in the diagnostic formulation, is that part of your report or is that part of Dr. Cruz's?
That's my report.
Okay. You talked about his mood swings, right?
Right.
Can you tell the jury about his mood swings?
Yes.
Bottom of that first paragraph.
He reported that sometimes he had 1 minute he'll feel really euphoric good, and then something can happen and he'll immediately get in a bad mood.
Okay. Now,
That he has rapid mood swings, 1 minute happy, 1 minute sad. And that type of description of mood swings is not consistent with bipolar disorder or mania.
okay. Did you say it was more consistent with a personality disorder?
Yes.
Now, you know that he has organic brain damage, right?
I know that he had a depressed skull fracture. I know that initially the CAT scans revealed no brain contusion. I know that you have experts that say there is evidence that there was a brain contusion. I know that there's a structural, I mean, you could look at scans, it's quite obvious. Functionally, in other words, his performance on the neuropsych testing, his concentration, his memory. The reason I got the neuropsych testing is I had a defense provided report that says he has an IQ of 87. And I'm sitting there to myself, how does someone with an IQ of 87 get a computer science degree from Mississippi State, summa cum laude, which is the highest grades you can get? That and someone with an IQ of 87 don't match. It'd be very hard for someone with an IQ of 87 to do that well in such a hard college degree program. So that's why I wanted the neuropsych.
Right. The frontal lobe is the part that controls executive functioning and emotions. Right?
Yes.
Now, impairments to that can cause personality changes, right?
It can, yes. Frontal lobe damage can cause personality changes.
And it can cause difficulty with mood regulation.
Yes. But I would have expected that to be quite evident right after the injury. And I didn't get that history from his father or his grandmother.
And the jury's heard from Dr. Snyder about how long and what effects people can have, right?
Oh no.
You've reviewed
A report.
And Dr. Bigler's reports with regard to brain injury.
Yes.
You don't have any reason to disagree with any of their findings?
I have reason to disagree with, I don't have the reports in front of me, but about his functioning. His memory, concentration, frontal lobe functioning on neuropsych testing is excellent.
And you're talking about his cognitive test, his IQ.
It's not just IQ, but just ability to plan, to abstract, you know. Dr. Cruz specifically gave him tests that are designed to measure frontal lobe functioning. And they were all fine.
Sorry to interrupt. If I can ask for clarification of his questions. Dr. Frierson read the reports. He was not here for testimony, so I don't want their confusion about maybe something that was testified to that's not in the report. So if it's something specific, I'd ask that be clarified.
Fair suggestion. So let's don't misconstrue any prior and none that you have. Be clear with your questions, since he's not been sitting here during any of the trial.
And they haven't made any specific findings about Mr. Jones. They've just made findings about possible impairments from brain injury, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And you don't have any reason to disagree with what they say about possible impairments?
Yeah, I've seen the pictures.
I think you described them as very impressive.
They are impressive.
And what is that?
You can see structural abnormalities in the brain. But I'm concerned with functional, not structural. You can have a very normal-looking brain and have horrible functioning. You can have a very abnormal-looking brain and still be functioning very well.
And he was. I mean, he went to college, got a degree, graduated, got a job.
Right. There was no evidence of impairment.
Over on the top of page 43, I think you were talking about some of the possible symptoms of schizophrenia. And at the bottom of the first paragraph, you were talking about disorganized speech or behavior. Is that right?
It's in my report. I mentioned it.
And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen about disorganized speech and behavior as it relates to schizophrenia?
Right. People with schizophrenia at times when they're not in treatment can display disorganized speech and behavior. You might see bizarre things that people do. You might see someone dressed in 3 coats when it's 100 degrees outside. You might see someone speak and it really not make any sense. They jump from topic to topic. They may make up words that mean something to them that you've never heard of. Made up words that they have their meaning for them. So, one of the things that I looked at is the description of Mr. Jones 24 hours after he was arrested, when he's sweating profusely, foaming at the mouth, screaming 1 minute, not making a lot of sense. His father said it was just like I was staring at his mother when she was mentally ill. He has all those things, and then, which, could be a presentation of acute psychotic episode of schizophrenia. But then without any sort of treatment, 24 hours later, he's back to pretty much his normal self. His dad said, I saw my Tim again. If this was schizophrenia or a psychotic disorder due to schizophrenia, I would not expect it to get better without treatment. It doesn't get better on its own.
How about the driving all over the Southeast?
He was. That was purposeful on his part. He was trying not to be at home. He was trying to figure out what to do, where to go, where to dispose of the bodies.
And did you review the notes that he had made about the body disposal?
Yes.
Did those appear to be disorganized?
No.
Not at all. All the arrows, all the circles.
Well, people have ways of making notes to themselves. They were logical in sequence. Dissolve the bodies, saw them up, burn them, dispose of them. He had looked at places to dispose of the bodies. He had searched cadaver dogs in landfills.
Which he didn't take them to?
No.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about delusions and how they develop? And
delusions are fixed false beliefs. They are something that someone will believe even when given evidence to the contrary. I'll give you an example. I had a guy who thought the government had implanted a computer chip in his body. It was monitoring him and sending him all sorts of messages. And actually, his physician sent him for a scan, an MRI scan. Said, there's nothing in your body. You haven't been implanted. And then, he says it's got a cloaking device. So even when given evidence that this isn't in your body, he still believes it. That's a fixed, false belief. Delusions develop very slowly over time. You might have the neighbor next door is parking his car closer and closer to your property, and you become suspicious of that. One day you see him out by the mailbox and you think he might be looking in your mailbox. You become suspicious of that. A few days later, you may smell some abnormal smell inside your house, and you think the neighbor might be putting something in your air conditioning vent to poison you. And then at some point, you become convinced that your neighbor's trying to hurt you. But it begins gradually and over time to reach a delusion.
And you reviewed some internet searches regarding Mira and whether or not Tim thought she might be schizophrenic?
Yes. He said that one day Mira was talking to herself.
And you started looking at...
Yes. He was very afraid that he was going to have what his mother had and that his children were going to have what his mother had. Schizophrenia.
You didn't think that was a delusion?
No. I think a lot of people that have mental illness in the family worry that it might affect them. The risk is greater if you have a parent, but it's not. 85 to 90% of people with a parent with schizophrenia will not get schizophrenia. The vast majority do not end up with schizophrenia.
The time trying to electrocute me, you did not think that was it?
I thought it was a paranoid thought, but it wasn't of delusional intensity. It wasn't fixed at that point because he didn't think anything about Natan earlier that day. I mean, he knew that Natan was fascinated with electricity.
And he had done searches about...
Right. Could he hurt himself? He'd unscrewed a light bulb above the bathroom sink. He caught him one day about 2 weeks, I think, before this happened. And he was making sure that he wanted to see how dangerous it was. But he said Natan had a fascination with electricity.
You don't think that was